When I hear gentrification, the term I hear white people taking over neighborhoods of people of color. And I feel like we are now in a neighborhood that used to be a very black neighborhood. We are close to Fulton Mall, which was a sort of a black boulevard for shopping, for going out for entertainment. And you see how that is changing and how that is catering more and more to a different group of people, white people. And I think gentrification is very much making a cultural situation that is comfortable for white people. And I think you have to counter gentrification by making that area, that space, like here in Brooklyn, in downtown Brooklyn, make it a place for black people to feel comfortable. I feel that white people should adapt to a situation where they brought into. We got now all these huge high-rises coming up here in the neighborhood, and you can tell who's going to be in those buildings. And I think you shouldn't have any illusions. And I always wonder who was behind the plans. Were they aware that they were getting into a black neighborhood? Were they aware that they were in a space, in a cultural space that was not theirs? And how do you work on that? Were they aware? I'm not from this country originally. I'm from Europe, and we have much more intervention from government in this sort of issues. And here it's very much free market, which is fine, but you can also deal with these issues in a free market. But then you have to really be very conscious, and you have to find the right partners to work on the negative effects of gentrification. When you go into a neighborhood and you have to regard yourself as a guest, then you have to change. And I don't see that happening. I saw on the other side of the street, there was a great organization called Kumbe. That is a dance organization, still exists, but not with a space for themselves. They rent spaces now, but they had a great space. They did African heritage dance. So it was dance from the United States, dance from the Caribbean, dance from Africa. And it was a great spot where black people congregated. Some white people congregated too, were part. But, you know, as a white person, you felt you were a guest in that cultural environment of Kumbe. The building is gone. It was torn down. And there was not one moment that somebody stood up from the government or from the businesses saying, we're going to save that space for our neighborhood. And they're now all over Brooklyn, which is sad, because it was a very nice place, concentrated for black people, and where white people could come, of course, but were guests and were celebrating the culture they were originally not part of. You know, when I bring these issues up to other white people, most people are, let's say, in the circles where I live in. Most people are favorable and feel that this is a right way to think about, you know, gentrification. But, you know, it is very hard to fight those who organize the world, so to speak. So our kids are going to a school here in Brooklyn, an independent school. It's basically a white school. It has all sorts of issues about race, implicit in how they teach history. That is part of an unconscious racism, I would say. People are not aware what history, American history, means for non-white people and how that is taught. So it's difficult to change these issues. But people are open to think about it. But if it comes, you know, individually, but when it comes to an institutional level, it's getting very tough to change that school, that independent school, and to rethink what they do with a view from people who are not of color is tough. Is really tough. When I hear racism, I think of myself. Because I think we're all part of a way of thinking that is really hard to get out of your brain. We're all brainwashed in how the world is organized. And so when I think racism, I really don't think we should say they are racist, but we have to think about ourselves. I think that is part of that racism. I think we talked about culture. When you talk about culture, I think most of white people think that even liberal people who are not, not right-wing crazies, but even white people, I think they would say Bach or Mozart or are more important than, for example, Louis Armstrong or Miles Davis, or there is this idea of an organization in the world which is that the top values are white values, and that is supremacy, not in the negative in a negative sense, but in the sense how you value culture, and that's hard to get rid of. All these terms, racism, white supremacy, privilege, they're all related. They're one part of a system that is out there. And I think we should fight it. And I think the leadership to fight it has to come from white people. They have to take steps to change things and change how they deal with these issues. And that's hard. Of course, they have to get advice from black people, but you cannot bring the burden of change to black people. You cannot ask black people to change white people. If white people don't do it themselves, if maybe help with black people, nothing will change. I'm very privileged, and I know that, I'm aware of that, and I'm financially privileged, I'm educationally privileged, and that is not of doing of myself, that is just from where I was born and the color of my skin. If gentrification was a crime and I was the sole witness and had to point a finger, I would point to the various mayors here in New York. I would point to Mayor Bloomberg, but even more so to Mayor de Blasio. I think he has a role to play, being a Democrat, knowing very from close by black issues. He should be there to make sure that people stay in their areas, can live in their areas, can celebrate life in their areas, and have culture in their areas. We are so privileged that we don't have to go. We are two parents with African-American kids. We adopted African-American kids. And we were thinking, because we felt in Brooklyn Heights, close to Court Street, that is basically not black enough. And we thought, let's go to Fort Greene, because that's there's a larger black community. But by doing so, we would be part of the gentrification in the first place. And the second place, the neighborhood is getting now so white that the move from Brooklyn Heights to Fort Greene would hardly be effective with the goals we had.